Oh, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Psychology Eats. So, what's eating you? It's July and it is National Black and Indigenous People Mental Health Awareness Month. And so, for the month of July, I will be coming to you live with a different topic to discuss mental health in the Black community. Tonight's topic is, can you pray away emotional pain? Can you pray away emotional pain? So I'm going to give some people a chance to come in here, see if we can get anybody today. And then we will get into the discussion. Wait a minute. Let me open up my laptop. So Black and Indigenous People Awareness Month is sponsored by B.B. Campbell, who was a playwright, an American playwright, who had a daughter who had mental health issues. And this foundation is part of her legacy, which we are thankful for, that before she passed away, that she thought about mental health services and how her contribution could help and will help people who are living with mental illnesses. So that is why there is this National Mental Health Month, recognition month for the month of July for Black and Indigenous people. So tonight I'll be talking about the Black experience. I know I want to talk more about Indigenous people and their experience, but I just need to do a little more research about it because I don't know anybody who is Indigenous. I guess unless that include, well, I guess that is the people who um, started here in the United States. Or does that include all minorities? I gotta figure out what they mean by that. But can you pray away your emotional pain? So we've been taught that if you grew up in the Black community, you know religion is a key factor in the Black community, and we have, as Black people, have relied on religion to get us through some difficult times as a community, as families. Religion has been that staple in our community. Some people would argue that as Black people, maybe we've relied too heavy on religion to see us through difficult situations where we didn't take control of situations because we were relying on religion to fix it. And we were relying on prayer to fix things that needed more than just prayer. So you could argue that, but then you can argue too that Martin Luther King, one of the greatest civil rights leaders of the world, leaned on his religion, not only his religion, Christianity and prayer to get him and the people who work with him and Black people as in general. He used prayer, but he also put in the work. He just didn't, pray for equal rights. He prayed about it and then he marched about it. He went out to get legislation changed. So he put in the work. he put in the work. So we're talking about Christianity. So if we go way, 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 way back, when we were brought to this country, we as African people were not Christians. That was not our original religion. They did have religion in Africa, and most of Africa and most of the world is Muslim to this day. Most of the world is Muslim. So had we not been brought here, captured and brought here as a culture and a community, as people, chances are we would be practicing Muslims or some other type of religion and not Christianity. But for many of us, once our families were brought here, they were converted, beat into, honestly, the slaves were beat into and forced into the religion of Christianity. That's just facts. And so, like as a part of our survival, over the generations, we formed this attachment to Christianity. And oftentimes Christianity and being Baptist was our only sense of being able to kind of talk about our hurt, our pain, whatever we were going through. And we did that through Christianity and through prayer, which I, am also a product of Christianity myself, and absolutely have used and still use prayer as a form of being. Let me mute this. Hold on. And I use prayer as a form of, getting through whatever issues I might be getting through. If they're difficult issues, if they're, happy things, sad things, we use prayer. I use prayer as a way. I've taught my children to use prayer. But I think the way we, for those of us, a little more modern about religion, I think it's important to have that foundation of religion. And hi, Jeanette, and knowing right from wrong, and religion is a good basis for that. But however, it is time for us as Black people that we say it's okay that we have therapists, or we go and talk to someone about our mental health issues, because not every pastor or the deacon at your church is going to be skilled enough to be able to do that. Thank you, Jeanette. Not all of our pastors are going to be skilled enough to help us through some really difficult problems. And oftentimes people go to church when they are really going through stuff. Church has been for Black people a sanctuary. It's been a sanctuary. And even like some of the religious songs that we learned growing up, and some of the religious songs that the slaves used, oftentimes had messages in the songs. And that is how I hate to say captured people, that is how they communicated with each other from plantation to plantation. And it would be through song. So if they're singing, it's going to be a train leaving tonight, whatever, and that song would carry on from plantation to plantation. And within that religious song was a real message about, girl, we about to get up off of this plantation. Mm-hmm. We leaving tonight. when the sun go down and hit the riverbed just right, that's when I'm gonna meet you tonight. And that will be in a song, but I'm here, but I want to be able to comment too much. I'm here, but I want you won't be able to comment too much tonight, or you will. Well, thank you for coming, Linda. So yeah, so those religious songs saved our life. They really did. Those songs saved our lives because through those religious songs and that music was so many messages that helped the slave owner. I mean the slaves, they captured people. So that's where prayer, and for us as Black people, oh, you're packing, okay. And that's where prayer comes in for us. It was a major point of support for Black people, prayer. I think what happens is sometimes people in your life just don't know how to help you. Like you meet somebody, you have somebody in your family and they're always going through something. Maybe they have a real mental illness. Maybe they have depression or they have anxieties and you just don't know what else to say to them. And so people will say to you, girl, you got to pray. You just got to pray. That's all you can do is pray. And even prayer, in church now, churches, like I said, are becoming a little more, I guess, a little more educated. And so now even in churches, they are some churches talk about teaching people how to pray. Like, what do you say in prayer? So just telling somebody, oh, you need to pray, it's probably not enough information for somebody who is really, really going through a difficult situation. And so you can't pray away schizophrenia, childhood trauma, anxiety, depression. Those things cannot be prayed away. So, yes, you can have prayer as a sense of support, but you also need to put in the work to work through trauma, to work through pain, to work through your depression. So that is where therapy and mental health treatment comes in. But of course, you can have the prayer and you can have the mental health treatment. It's just important. Even like I know another good one is like, and I've heard this like coming up, maybe there's somebody in the family and they're having marital problems. And the advice to the person who is going through marital problems from family members is just pray about it. You just got to pray about it. That's it. But is prayer going to stop my husband from being verbally abusive? Faith without works is dead. Absolutely. Yep, I had that written down right here. Show enough. You have to put in the work. So I have faith that my God is hearing my prayer. And I have faith that some prayers are answered. I know that. But I've got to put in the work. Meaning I have to, I have to go to therapy and I have to tell my truth. And I have to, work on my marriage. And, you got to put in the work. So when people tell you, oh, and I've heard that I had family, aunties or whatever in abusive relationships. And I remember hearing like the elders say to my aunt that I'm thinking about, you just got to pray. You just got to pray. I'm like, pray? How prayer gonna help her? Like she need a plan. She can pray about her plan, but she needs a plan to be able to escape this type of this abuse that she's dealing with. So, and that's for any religion, not just, I'm speaking from my experience of being Christian, but I'm sure it's true in a lot of religions. Oftentimes religion has kept us in in abusive relationships. Honestly, religion is, and when I think about Black people, I'm thinking about in this country and most of us being Christian, um, but religion and even Muslim women, are forced into marriages and to stay in a marriage where they or could possibly be abused, mistreated, and religion says you need to stay, with your husband, that divorce is not an option. And if you are going through something, then you need to pray about it. And that in itself, what's what's wrong? Why you take it out? Put it in the fridge. That oh, okay. That within itself is oftentimes just not enough. It's just not enough. That faith without work is dead, meaning you got to put in the work. You can't pray away abuse. You can't pray away a bad relationship. You can't pray away anxiety. You can't pray it away depression. You definitely can lean on prayer. You can lean on prayer, use prayer, and religion is important, but you got to put in the work. You have to put in the work, and then be able to move forward with getting help and getting treatment. So we have some counselors who are, their specialty is Christian therapy or whatever they call it. I think it's called a Christian therapist. And so the foundation and the basis of their treatment and their style is based in religion. But even with that, those therapists are still, asking the client to put in the work. They're still telling the client, these are some things that you may want to do if you want to improve your chances of treatment. And so that's what I would say to anybody. Yes, you're going to have your religion. You can't, tell me nothing about my Jesus. But at the same time, there's some goals that I have in my life that I want to pray my strength to do it. Lord, give me strength to get up and accomplish these goals. And that's my prayer, but I can't just pray, Lord, I want to accomplish this goal and not do anything. And so that's the message to women. If I'm going to say to women, if you are in an abusive relationship, that prayer is not going to change your abuser, that if you've been praying for the last 20 years that your abuser changes, or you've been praying for a way out, and maybe God is answering your prayer. He's answering your prayer by giving you the job that you needed to be able to make money so that you can leave that relationship. Or he's building up your self-esteem so that you can say, I'm leaving this relationship. But if you're praying that that man is changed and no longer is an abuser, you'll be praying for a very long time. You'll be using up a lot of your life praying that prayer for his change, when the change has got to come from you, right? It's got to come from you. So, you can see it. I mean, if you grew up Baptist, in most Baptist churches, we have what we call altar time, and so everyone goes to the altar to pray. And you can see the heaviness in a lot of people when they go to the altar for prayer, or anytime, during the course of a church service. How many times have we prayed? I think we have at least 2 or 3, but prayers. But then you have the big prayer when you are called to the altar. And if you've been to a Baptist church, that is a time like, oh, so many people, the pastor just like, if you got something to pray about, come to the altar and pray. And you can see the heaviness and the burden in the people, who go up to prayer. Because whatever this situation is, they just so burdened by it. I mean, I've seen people like they can barely get to the prayer, like they so heavy with pain and hurt and trauma, and they get to the prayer and get to the altar, and I always like, I'm thinking this because I'm watching, and so they get and they pray, and you can see maybe like that sense of relief, like a burden has been lifted, and then they go back to their seat, and from the prayer to the seat, has that problem really changed? Has there been some accomplishment? Maybe it has, in the form of that person being able to just talk about it. Even though you're talking about it to God, it's just that sense of being able to express what is bothering you and what's on your mind. So overall, that is my topic for tonight. Is prayer enough? I think prayer is a part of getting better and finding your peace and dealing with your trauma and improving your overall mental health. But prayer is not for everybody because not everybody is religious. So I'm really just talking to those of us who have been raised under a religion and who have been told that if we got a problem, just pray about it. Just pray about it, and it's gonna work itself out. I could call my mom right now and tell her something that a problem that I'm going through, and she gonna say, okay, you should do this, that, and the third. But before we hang up, she gonna tell me, and don't forget, just pray about it. I don't care what it is. What it is. It will tell me, and I can call a couple of the aunties and some cousins and siblings, and they're going at the end of somewhere in that conversation, did you pray about it? You should probably just pray about it. So, but I never hear anyone say you should go to therapy about that. That sounds like a really heavy burden. Maybe you should go to therapy about that. And I think that's the language that I would love to see Black people use. Your marriage is falling apart. Praying about it is probably not going to fix it. The better advice is, I know a good therapist. You should call and get therapy for that. You need to work through that with a non-judgmental person and pray about it. Even when we use, like the pastor of our church. And that's great because I said the other night, I talked to my pastor, when my kids were teenagers, like, oh my God, these kids, is really taking me through something. I'm going to need you to talk to them. And it was helpful. It was helpful. But not everything you may feel comfortable telling your pastor, and not everything your pastor may be comfortable enough to really be able to deal with, right? You go to your pastor and tell him some really heavy stuff like, I got raped, tell the pastor, I got raped the other day. Like, okay, the pastor can pray with you through that, but does the pastor know, is the pastor equipped to know how to help you deal with the trauma of being raped? And is that a burden you want to put on your pastor, who in most cases is not going to have that amount of time to be able to help you work through a trauma like that? And so pastors, even though, after they pray with you, the next sentence should be, you really need to go into counseling. As much as I want to support you, and I will support you, praying is not going to fix the trauma that you have experienced from being raped or molested or kidnapped or, you know, whatever the case may be. And I've seen that. People kind of show up at church at their worst. So, and I've seen churches not be able to handle that. And in particular, you know, thinking about my own church, not being equipped to handle when people. That's one thing about Black people. When we go to church, we want to look our best and we want to feel our best. I suggest to people to go to the proper authority. That could be the police or therapy. Also say prayer for strength. Absolutely. So when we go to church, we want to look our best. You know, we wear, you know, if you've never experienced a Black church, a Christian church, go. It's an experience. It is an experience. So, you know, people want to dress their best. They want to look their best. They got the best hat. Who got the best hat, the best outfit to church? So even though they look real good on the outside, oftentimes that the inside is, you know, the part that's really dealing and going through some mess. But sometimes they come to church and they don't have on a beautiful dress. They don't have on a fancy hat. They come toe up from the flow up, internally tore up and tore up on the outside. And I've seen this not only in my church, but in other churches that I've been in. And people look at them like, who is that? And why is she in here like looking like that? Right? Who, what? Right? Or I know my church started inviting one of our local homeless shelters into the church to come to church. And I think they even sent the van there to pick them up and bring them into church. And people really, thank you, Linda. People was really like in my church. Now, my church ain't no high sedity church, but we ain't broke either. We ain't broke, but we ain't high sedity either. I've been in some of them super churches. We ain't doing that. But when we started bringing in people from the shelter, and of course, shelter men, it was a men's shelter, and we actually go there. I think we used to anyway, and go and feed the people once a month. We would go different ministries, but anyway, let me get back to that. So when the people from the shelter started coming to church, people was really like giving them the side eye and like holding their pocketbooks like, And I know it probably made them feel so uncomfortable because, you know, they're trying to look their best, and, you know, people had donated some clothing so they can come in and have on, you know, decent clothes and stuff. But, you know, you could tell they was from the shelter, and people was really kind of looking at that crazy. And sometimes they might have had some mental health issues. And so they didn't quite fit into Linda, they was running, girl. They didn't quite fit into what everyone else looked like at the church. They didn't fit. And it was, people didn't like it. They didn't like it. Now, if anybody is in here from my church, y'all know I ain't lying. Y'all know y'all was talking about them people. And so, and some of them came with their problems, you know, with their mental illnesses and, you know, their trauma and all of that stuff. And so was our church ready to handle that? No, we absolutely were not prepared to handle that. Not to toot my own horn, but I did get started at my church, the Community Resources Ministry. And to be able to tell people who needed resources, where to go. Because like I said, prayer is not going to fix everything. If I have somebody that came from the shelter into the church and they struggling with heroin addiction, I can't pray away that your heroin addiction. Okay, believe me, if I could pray away people's heroin addiction, woo, I'll be a millionaire. But you can't pray it away. Has prayer helped people get off heroin? Absolutely. Absolutely. But can you pray it away, in a day? No. And so when people, needed that kind of community resource information, we were able to start a ministry at our church, and other churches have the same thing. I got the tooted girl. We were able to start that ministry to be able to help people because it's important. It just goes back to churches being willing to understand and hear that. And some of the more progressive churches get it. They really do. They have younger pastors who are educated, because oftentimes our older pastors did not have to be educated. Now, even for my church, when we were looking for a new pastor, because unfortunately our pastor died, I might talk about that one day, but when we were looking for a new pastor, that was part of that he needed to be educated, right? So we were looking, I think he ever had a master's or at least a bachelor's in seminary or something. So it's important because that only gives a foundation of the religion, but also knowledge, because people are coming to church burdened down. I know, what's the song? I'm going to lay all my burdens down by the riverside. Down by the riverside. Down by the riverside. I'm going to lay down my burden. Right. So that's like, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to leave my problems here. And we can do that, because I tell people, we got to talk about how to let things go. But how do you really do that? There's some work involved in letting go. So even with that song, I'm going to lay my burdens down by the riverside. I want to leave the trauma at the river. I want to leave my depression at the river. I want to leave my anxiety at the river. And you can do that, but you're going to need some prayer. And I believe you're going to need therapy and faith that you can get there, and you can leave those burdens down by the riverside. So we know that religion overall has sustained us as Black people through some of the most difficult times of our life. I know in times of my life when you don't have mama there, daddy ain't there, your friends not there, nobody is there but you and God, and you going through something, you're going to go, and if you've been taught how to pray, you're going to pray. And you've been taught how to pray, you're going to pray. I know I say that to my kids. I can give them advice on how to do something, but I'm laughing because my husband just looked at me and rolled his eyes. He just looked at me and rolled his eyes. I told my kids, you got to pray. Are you continuing to pray? Are you praying? Do you pray? And I think they do, because they don't grow up in the church. They don't been in the church all these years. You better have learned something. But at the same time, there are some other things that you need to do to work through whatever your issues are and your problems. My husband is laughing because hey boy, stop capping. I'm not a prayer before I eat. I don't always pray. He does, but I don't always pray before I eat. So he thinks I'm a heathen because I don't always pray over my food. So yes, that is it, boy, stop capping. I was just talking about prayer and religion. That's it. That's all. I think that's it. If anybody don't have any questions, I'm going to get out of here. Remember, faith without works is dead, meaning, yes, you can pray, but you can't pray away your pain. You can't pray away your trauma. You cannot pray away anxiety, and you can't pray away depression. You can get back to packing now, Linda. Those things cannot be prayed away, but you definitely can get that support that you need through religion. That's it, and that's all. That's all I got for tonight. Look for me hopefully tomorrow if my energy is good and I can think of another topic. I think I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to do your trauma is not my drama. That topic came to me, but I'm not sure about how it's going to manifest. But your trauma is not my drama. A period. So I think that's tomorrow. So yes, thank you everyone. Thank you for participating, for listening. And if you are new here, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Uh-oh. I'm sorry, somebody's trying to call me. Oh, I'm confused. All right, guys, I'm hanging up. Good night. Thank you. I'm on, Keith. Would you zip it?